for confirming. Thank you.
And Marilyn Houston's there as well.
She is. I've got that. Right. With the sound. So we're just checking now. Live, Bob. Spare the second. Just waiting for it to refresh the screen. Right, let's just check now. The broadcast appears to be up. We're just checking to make sure the second. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, Bob. Just a second. I'm just waiting for a message through from Emily. Who... Right. Okay. Someone can hear me, so that's a start. Bob, can you say something back to me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Right. Just let me check that they can hear you as well. No. Right, Bob, I'm going to suggest that you move on.
Okay, we're going on to item 5, and I'm going to ask the Chief Fire Officer to present the report. Mark?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. Thank you for your patience today. We will have a good look at how we try and fix this in the future. It is out of our control, though, so I'll try and rapidly go through some commentary on the paper and then invite some questions. So the detail of the paper has previously been discussed with Staffing Committee, as it says in the paper, and it is here today for discussion and decision. You'll recall that just over a year ago in one of my appraisals, we discussed undertaking a review of the SMT structure, and this was fundamentally to see if the structure was fit for purpose going forward, and also to address some risks that we'd identified about the retirement profile of members of SMT. So the service commissioned an independent consultant to undertake this review. The consultant was Steve Mason, who's been an HR director for a number of police and fire services, as well as a number of other organisations. And members may recall that Steve was previously the services HR director a number of years ago. This review was then delivered, and it produced a number of recommendations which were presented to the Staffing Committee. And as you can see from paragraph 9, the committee was supportive of the recommendations, but wanted the report to come here, the recommendations to come here, I should say, and a decision needed to be made by the Full Fire Authority. The review concluded that the current structure worked, but in light of a number of risks and also opportunities, some changes would be appropriate, and this is detailed in paragraph 11 of your report. One of the fundamental reasons for the review was, as I've said, an identified risk around retirements at senior levels in the service. Now, paragraphs 12 and 13 provide some detail, But if I get to the crux of it, it's that 2 out of 3 of the principal officers, the existing principal officers, can now retire. And as you know, Assistant Chief Officer Gus O'Rourke has indicated that he is about to retire. In addition, all of the rest of the senior management team is eligible to retire within 5 years. And perhaps equally, if not more worrying, is that a large proportion of the tier beneath the senior management team can also retire within the next 5 years. As the report says, this risk is not unique to Cheshire, but is a national issue that fire faces at the moment. The review also picks out that our current structure is out of kilter with most other services. Most services have their model from a uniform perspective of a chief, deputy chief, and assistant chief fire officer. And whilst I think that the structure was appropriate when it was instigated, I also think that the time is now right to amend it and agree with the report. This is also facilitated and made much easier by the retirement of ACO Gus O'Rourke. So the new deputy chief role will liberate some capacity for others, but it will also potentially mitigate some of our progression issues as well going forward. The review identified a number of other areas which I'll touch upon. The first being that the head of prevention role could be absorbed into another function. And this has previously been the case and it has worked well. And this conclusion came from speaking to members of FSMT, including the current head of prevention, as well as some national reviews that was undertaken. The report also identified that there is a lack of capacity in the treasurer's role and recommends that an increase in hours from 1 day, as it is at the moment, up to a maximum of 2.5 days. I should say, though, in reality, the treasurer has never done 1 day because it wasn't possible to fulfill his role in that time and has generally had to work at least 2 days. In addition, it's recommended that the service implements a plan to allow it to release more savings from blue light collaboration, specifically a transformation plan that would be led by the Director of Transformation, Andrea Harvey, and myself, that would ultimately allow the post of Director of Transformation to be released in due course. Now, this plan would need to be developed and then signed off by members and also reported regularly to members around its progression. I'll very quickly summarise the recommendations from page 1, which are to replace the existing Assistant Chief Fire Officer post with a Deputy Chief Fire Officer post and approve the recruitment of this post, agree an increase in hours for the Treasurer up to a maximum of 2.5 days per week, support the development of a plan that will ultimately allow us to remove the Director of Transformation post, and finally, linked to these recommendations, paragraph 34 highlights that there is the potential for us to save around £160,000 over 3 years. If members do support the recommendations of this paper, a recruitment process for the Deputy Chief Fire Officer role will start immediately. Indeed, we would get some of the documentation around recruitment out to the staffing committee probably by the end of play today. As the paper says, there are a number of tax implications linked to senior officer pensions, which have limited the number of people applying, but also increased the number of vacancies. I'm also aware that due to a number of national retirement profiles, that many services are going out to recruit for principal officer over the next 1 to 2 years. As I say, the recommendations address a number of risks and also ensure that the senior management team continues to be fit for purpose, whilst at the same time saving some money for the service. I think the recommendations are appropriate and also ensure that the service management team is in a good place to deliver what is needed in the future. I'm conscious, members, because of today and the difficulties we had, I have rattled through that. I'm very happy to take any questions or amplify on anything that I've said. Thank you, members.
Chair, we need to just stop the meeting a moment,
Yes.
please, while we just restart the feed. So
Okay.